Wanderlust, my video blog on Forrest Fenn's treasure hunt, search for gold. Today, I'm going to go a little free form here. I had some ideas about the treasure hunt. So sometimes I see things on the internet, or I go to Reddit and I read threads there, or other blogs or websites, or I just look at pictures or content, and there's just unending topics and information to be discussed about the thrill of the chase and Too Far to Walk, which is like a whole nother book. But the thing that caught my attention, or an idea, I've seen this before and it always seems very interesting, is that people will take if you just look at The Thrill of the Chase, a memoir by Forrest Fenn. This is a pretty good picture reproduction here. And one of the things that a lot of people have noticed is that if you take the book and you flip it over, and let's see if I can do it justice. You flip the book over, the cover of the book, The Thrill of the Chase, and then if I take out my drawing tool here, let's make it red, and got the pen, see if it's the right. And if you start drawing along the coins, and you come down along the edge here, and then you draw along these pictures, make a straighter line. Straight line, across here, come down here, and like this, and this. So you could imagine if you had the map, here's Washington State, Oregon, and then this goes off like this, and here is kind of like right here. So here would be Idaho. Here's Montana. Here's Wyoming. This would be Utah, and this would be Colorado. So what the point is, there's a couple of points, and actually I have another picture. If I can, I gotta turn that off first. Draw. Well, I can't do that. So let's just clear this out. If I can make my book upside down again, fit. All right, make it. Let's go to that idea. And then I'll go to the other picture because it's probably a better picture than mine, and it has a map underneath it. But one of the main things that people notice, the book is upside down, and then you can draw a map, and the outline of these pictures and the coins. It is interesting that you can draw this little picture from the pictures on the front of the book, and that the gold coins are in Montana. Okay, maybe that is a clue. I mean, that really could be. And what the inference is that the gold chest is hidden in Montana. So here's a picture that I picked off the internet where somebody's done the same thing and done a better job of it than me. And it's nice that they show the map, and then they impose the same thing that I kind of just did, and they show that the gold coins are in Montana. Now, one of the interesting things is that early on in the chase, and I don't have the exact dates, and at some point I will do some videos on that because that is really interesting, is dissecting the actual audio of these interviews that Forrest Fenn does, because there's just a plethora of information, good or bad or maybe in between, that can be extracted from those videos, or those interviews. That being said, that you could argue both sides. On the original chase, it is my understanding, and I could be wrong about this, is that Idaho and Utah because they're part of the Rockies or have the Rocky Mountains going through them, partly were part of the chase. Now, the interesting thing is that if you look at the map that's in the book, that he only includes the four states. So you take that for what it is, and again, remember the this is like flipping the book over and drawing some crazy thing. Does it have any meaning? It's arguable. Going back to the cover of the book, I know that there is a trick that a lot of artists, I have artists, some pretty artists in my family, and I know a trick that artists will do is they will take, and you'll see this a lot in graphics art, is it the idea is you take the letter E and they will arrange artwork around the letter E. I think another trick of doing it is that it's hard to do, but you take the letter E and you put it backwards. And so what they do is it creates another way to do this is it's basically a spiral. That's a bad spiral. Let's try it again. It's like this. The spiral grows. And so the idea is that it's geometrically pleasing to the eye, to the human eye, and it's a very nice aesthetic way. It really is aesthetic to place pictures or objects. And the thing is, if you start looking at advertising posters, even on television, advertising on the internet, if you start looking at static pictures of things, you will see this used over and over again. Even if you go to your local grocery store or any advertising, you will see this trick where they use this spiral outward. Now, the kind of weird thing, and now I'm sort of pushing the bounds of kind of going further and further out away, but you never know, maybe not. Is this? I'm going to jump to the internet. Hold on. And so here it is. It's actually called the Golden Section and Harmonious Page Formats, and it's based on a thing called the Fibonacci series, and there's a bunch of mathematics involved with it having to do with sequences in a series. If you've ever taken basic calculus or introductory to algebra, you'll have experienced sequence and series. And I'm going to show they show that a little bit here. And here is the Fibonacci series. It's 0 plus 1 equals 1, and then a series always does some kind of mathematical repetition. 1 equals 2, 1 plus 2 equals 3, 2 plus 3 equals 5, and you'll see a pattern. 3 plus 5 equals 8. And so the interesting thing is that these spiral patterns can be found in nature. And so what I'm jumping to is what I'm saying is did or is, let's see if I can put these side by side. You know, is Forrest Fenn sending us kind of a secret message about the hiding place having to do with this spiral, with the relationship of the Fibonacci series? I'm not saying that the man is involved with integral calculus or anything like that. You never know though. But they do teach this, and they did used to kind of teach something about similar to this in K through 12 schools. Um, so even in an art format, and that takes me to my other point about that it is very interesting that this is a something that if you take even an introductory class in art or graphics design, you're going to be subjected. They're going to talk about this spiral, and when you do your drawings or graphics to build your pictures or paintings using this model. And the line I'm drawing between this is that Forrest Fenn was an art collector. And I also think that that's very interesting. If you listen to a lot of his interviews and you listen to the information that he talks about, it's weird how I think it's kind of not, weird is maybe, it's a strange thing that there's these jumps that he went from being this Texas kid who grew up under this father who was a bit of a maverick, who was this principal of the high school in Texas and who summered in Yellowstone. And then he was a fishing guide, very young in Yellowstone. And then they had these cabins and they housed people to. He starts telling us stories about him growing up and riding horses and doing this logging, and that he was a bit of a punk, going down the street throwing the garbage can. And then he joined the military and he flew these fighter planes in Vietnam. And then he did that for quite a while. And after many years of that, got married, has kids, and decides suddenly that he's going to wear a pair of loafers and live in Santa Fe and be an art dealer. And so the art dealer thing still pecunes my interest, that you couldn't I guess you could be an art dealer, and he is sort of flippant about it. And he also did bronzes. He also tells a story about that he was self-taught or self-trained in creating bronze from scratch, and he made a lot of money making bronze reproductions or his own bronze. But I still think that it's hard to believe that he sold art and was very successful at selling art from many successful artists, and he hung around some very, very smart people who were involved with art, and that it could not have had that information had to be conveyed to him somehow. I just find it hard to believe that 15 years selling art, that he didn't have some kind of basic education about art, or just by rubbing elbows with artists. And he does by his own volition. In his own memoirs and interviews, he talks about that he rubbed shoulders with all these artists. I mean, he hung out with them and they were his friends, some not, some more. But and artists tend to do that. I mean, they talk about their art, or they may sit down and have a drink. And I just think that he may have had this information about the golden section and the backward E and the spiral. Now, then you say, okay, so what? So he had some art experience and he used that in creating the book cover. It's possible. I think it's